right, we interrupted this program now to bring you some definitely some highfalutin news about a name change in the wide world of sports. We have it used to be the Cleveland Indians. I won't say that no more because I know it offends somebody. They changed their name to the Cleveland Guardians. That announcement came yesterday. Cleveland was known as the Indians since 1915. They made the announcement yesterday in a video on Twitter that was narrated by the actor Tom Hanks. Um, you have the reasoning behind it. The team owner says, it was spurred by the death of George Floyd. And we have, the Indians, they also stopped wearing the logo of Chief Wahoo in 2018 because that was offensive. Anyways, Drink, this is not so much, it's not really unfamiliar territory given the climate in the country, but what'd you think of the name change?
I think the name change, the actual name is good. And listen, in a day and age, well, reading the article, what's his name? Not Dolan, but the other guy, Baran, I forgot. It was two guys that they mentioned. The owner, Paul
Yeah,
Dolan.
okay, yeah. Was the other guy the parent? Was it Brian Barron, maybe?
That's him, Brian Barron. He mentioned like how hard it is to find a name that's not already taken, and then the business of going about to be able to use that name. And I do think that goes a little over, the average citizen's head, that you can't just come up with a name and then start using it. It's a whole process to this. You got to clear it, you got to copyright it, you got to make sure someone is not someone else's name. Then you got to make sure that name can exist inside your organization, this, that, and the third, so on and so forth. So the fact that Cleveland took a stance back in 2018 pretty much, and now here we are in 2021. They actually have a name. They're not the Cleveland baseball team, or they're not just dragging their feet to come up with a name. I have to give Cleveland a lot of credit for that. And I don't think the Guardian name is all that bad. Listen, here's the deal. You said in the lead-in, this team was named the Cleveland Indians since 1915. Do you understand how hard it is to change a name that's been around that long? Do you understand how much business they done under that name? How many fans that came up under that name? This is just not as simple as changing the name on your Facebook profile. This is like, it's a whole lot that goes into this. So I think we got to check it and respect it. We have to respect the fact that they found the suitable name. They didn't take forever to do it, and it's not the worst name. It could be worse. The Guardians is not that worse of a name. So I respect that. But we talked about this before the show. The crazy thing of all this is this: this Cleveland team started this process after the former Washington Redskins, now the Washington football team. They started their process after that. And here we are still calling Washington the football team.
Yeah. Yep.
This shows me that even though this is a tough process, some people take this a little more serious than others. Cleveland clearly seemed to take this a little more serious than the Washington football team. Clearly. And I'm not going to go down the Dan Snyder rabbit hole, but this is another one in the record books for his lackluster attitude. So I want to throw that out there as well. That's unacceptable. Also, I want to talk about. I was reading the article. The owner said, "Well, I was at home, and after seeing the aftermath of what happened to George Floyd, I called up the GM Brian Barron and said, we got to do something about this. We got to change the name." He probably meant well when he said that. I'm just lost. I'm lost on what one thing got to do with the other. You know, apples and oranges is a reason why we have that terminology around. I think this could have been apples and oranges. George Floyd's situation, as tragic as it is, has nothing to do with the Cleveland Indian name. George Floyd was not a Native American. George Floyd's situation didn't happen in Cleveland, even though it was broadcasted nationwide. I don't understand unless your name was Cleveland Floyd. So I don't know why. Like, I don't understand what George Floyd had to do with you changing your name to a name that was the reason it was in the spotlight was it was deemed disrespectful to the Native Americans, not to the African Americans, the Native Americans. So I don't necessarily know what George Floyd's death had to do with them changing their name. Maybe it inspired him to make a change, and he's like, the country is making a change, so we're gonna make a change behind it. Maybe that's what he meant, but I'm gonna be real with you. As an African American, I'm lost in the sauce on this one. I don't know what one had to do with the other. But with that said, now we got the Cleveland Guardians, and I do think this name will stick around about as long as the former name stuck around. I don't think, like I said, I think it's a pretty good name. It seems like they got the logo figured out. You know, logos worth millions and even billions of dollars. So you got to make sure that's right. So it seems that they got that right. But before I wrap this up, I want to say this. I really would like to applaud the Cleveland Guardians owner and the GM for moving on this, making it happen, and not fumbling around with the fans. So now your fans can go out and buy gear that they know that won't change in 2 to 3 years because you was too lazy to name the team. So I want to applaud that, and you know, like I say, Cleveland Guardians is not a bad name. It could have been worse. So hats off to them.
So there's some good about this. There's some positives that I can peel, you know, in my normal, like, what are we doing, like the outrage culture that I kind of attribute everything to. But they look, they had a position last year. They said, hey, we're gonna change the name. And now, you know, X amount of months later, they didn't change the name. They made it happen. And there wasn't all this like drama along the way to where, oh man, like we let some, you know, no name clown like patent like every other name that we wanted on our list, you know, like that dude that in Washington did. You know, they didn't have none of that. And of course they didn't have all the like team sexual harassment foolishness that, you know, was hanging over the Washington's head. So look, they said, look, we're gonna change the name, and they got a new name now, and it sound okay. Like Cleveland Guardians, it sound good, has a nice ring to it. So that's the good points, and I think I can live with that. But of course, I got the flip side here, which would be number one, and I got to start here, and I'll ask you this question because I haven't looked into it. And I'm not that interested in looking into it, but are you aware, is the term Indians offensive? Is that where we are now?
So it seems to me any name that is associated to Native Americans is considered offensive. So if you use that parameter, I guess Indian is offensive. If you use that parameter. But I haven't ever read a book or looked at a commercial or whatever the case might be, seen the word Indian and was like,
and just been outraged.
Bulls.
Yeah,
this
right.
Is some straight bulls.
And that's kind of, and that's so okay. So judging by that, I guess apparently this is what we're being told. Like, we had to change the team name from Indians. Like, but so the only acceptable way to refer to Native Americans is now, I guess, Native Americans. But that's kind of so. It's kind of odd though, because I look at that like Indians to Native Americans. To me, is the same way as Black people to African Americans. I think it's the same thing. And I don't really like, I look at Black people and Indians as kind of like the slang version. And then African Americans and Native Americans is the proper version. I don't see anything wrong with either. Of course, I'm white, so there's plenty of people listening probably like this going to disqualify me from this, which is fine. But I got to admit, I don't see it. So we have that going on. And then, of course, and you covered it so well. The owner out here, like in the penthouse, watching the just aftermath of George Floyd, where the whole country was just in chaos. We had protests, we had multiple peaceful protests, and we know we had more than that. Let's not, the peaceful protests, the stuff on fire, that wasn't peaceful. We got to be honest about it. But I just like, okay, if I'm the Cleveland Indians owner, and I say, man, George Floyd died, everybody out here going crazy, man, what can I do about this? I know, the Native Americans, they've been mad as hell for years now about our team name, and I think the bigger point to me, I think, was the logo that people had a problem with. That's what I would probably think was more the problem, and they got rid of that in 2018. But they said, you know what? Now this would be a good time. I can help with social justice by changing the team name. That's what we'll do. And so they went along and did it. I'd love to know how that contributed to a decrease in police brutality and brought about, a more equal socioeconomic, opportunities for the African Americans. I'd love to know about it. I don't think there is none. I think this is, and I don't like to use this term a lot because it gets thrown around quite a bit on the right side of things. But this is, to me, this is classic virtue signaling. It's like, look, we got a symbol. We're gonna change it.
You said this is classic what again?
Virtue signaling.
Okay.
To where like you have a symbol, and okay, we can change this symbol, and us doing that shows you that we're good people and we're virtuous. And rather than actually going about and actually doing something that can have some substantive effect, because this doesn't really do anything. This is just similar. It's no different than, you're upset about white supremacy, or you're mad about that. You think the country's too white or whatever. So to help with that, well, let's see, what do we have around here? Oh, I see a statue of Abraham Lincoln. Tear it down. What the hell did that do? That didn't do anything, so it's kind of along that wavelength. And I just speaking of statues, here you have the team owner out here just like, man, what are we gonna do for a new name? And he was like looking at the Guardian sculptors who were, I guess, Native Americans or something, and he looks at, and they like the Guardians of Traffic or whatever, which is, I find to be odd. I like, what are they, the traffic cops or something? How does that work? And he said, man, that's what we'll do. We got the Guardians of the Traffic in the city, and they the Overwatch or whatever. That's what we got. We got the Cleveland Guardian. So it's just weird because the whole much of, after George Floyd, we saw a lot of people was mad. And then you have people just running around tearing it. At first, it was Confederate statues, and then it turned into something bigger. Like, oh, now we got to where we like pulling down, the statues of abolitionists who oppose. That means they oppose slavery, guys. They was on the Union side of things. And then you got Teddy Roosevelt. He got to come down. And then any of the founding fathers, they were white. They were before we ended slavery, so they got to come down. So in the aftermath of all that happening, and us just like this just incessant self-loathing that I refer to from time to time, where we just look in the mirror and just can't stand ourselves because of stuff that happened hundreds of years ago, which none of us have anything to do with, I might add. He looked at a statue and was like, man, I got it. The Guardians. We're going to be the Guardians, and that'll be appropriate. But I also say, and I heard someone say, like, the bounds of free speech are like the little string on a pair of sweatpants, and it used to be able to like fit somebody that's maybe a little overweight, that you could say kind of whatever. Now, as you watch what's happening, the bounds of free speech are they keep slimming down. Up until now, I kind of feel like we're in a situation where those sweatpants now will only fit like one of them Victoria's Secret models before they went to the whole plus size routine. You get what I'm saying? That's kind of where I feel like we're headed. And now you have a situation where Cleveland, me personally, if I was a person of Native American descent, I would almost be like, man, okay, we got this right here offends me, and we got it. But now you had like the Tribe was a possible team name. And he's like, oh no, we can't do that. We don't want to have anything to do with the Native American community because we don't want to offend nobody. So now, like, rather than like come up with a better name that maybe would, honor them in a better way, now we just, okay, we don't want nothing to do with them. So we're like just discounting groups of people in a way that the Native Americans, whether you thought it was positive or negative, were represented in baseball because of the Cleveland Indians. And now they're like, we don't have that anymore. I think that's somewhat problematic. The other part, by the way, I got through a bunch of negative, but the other positive was I never thought a baseball team could make the team formerly known as the Washington Redskins look foolish, but the Cleveland Guardians got it done. So anytime they can look kind of ridiculous, and of course, I'm looking at Daniel Snyder like, hello, y'all want to get y'all act together? They just proved it. It can't be that difficult. And meanwhile, they're gonna. No, we'll be the Washington football team for another year. That's fine. They've been Jane Doeing it around here for over a year, and they just look foolish. At least they got Ron Rivera, and they appear to be going in a good direction. But the Cleveland Guardians, a baseball team, made them look plain old foolish.
Wait, so not John Doe? They been Jane doing it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. I misgendered somebody.
I thought you was just hitting them with the
You said, hey, in the vaccine segment, you said the word mandate. And I got to be honest with you. That word might have to go away. Somebody said the word penmanship. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is tragic. We have to. And there you go with the sweatpants again. Like, it's getting tight in here, man. I can't do it. Anyway, rapid reaction in just a moment.